Dragon's Dogma 2 finds you in the role of the Arisen. You've been chosen by an ancient dragon to fight it to the death and stop the world from being destroyed. It is essentially Capcom's take on what if Monster Hunter met a really basic version of Elder Scrolls Oblivion. For over 30 hours I hacked, slashed, and magicked my way to glory. I enjoyed the first title, but I adored the second. So let's get into it in the XboxEra review of Dragon's Dogma 2. As the game begins, you appear to be crowned as the new king of the land, but then things fade to black and you awaken as a slave working away in a mine. As fortune would have it, you are the Arisen, and this mine is full of pawns. They are beings capable of traveling between worlds and are fiercely loyal to the Arisen of each land. With their help, you'll escape and work your way through two warring kingdoms. A plot is afoot to try and end this Dragon v Arisen cycle without you, and you'll have to navigate politics and feelings alike as you run across farmlands, deserts, and all manner of beautiful vistas. Dragon's Dogma 2 is first and foremost an action game. There are some pretty light RPG mechanics, many of them feeling right at home from the Monster Hunter games. You'll rarely make choices in dialogue, instead everything feels linear outside of a few key decisions. Even then, I never felt fully locked in if I made a mistaken choice, though the game does not let you save on your own. Every major action leads to an autosave for your one file. Early on, you'll be in the medieval Europe-style kingdom before working your way to a more Middle Eastern-themed one. They have been at war with one another for a while, though lately it's more Cold War than one filled with outright conflict. I'd advise taking your time early on to learn the game's many systems if you never played the first title. There is a lot to learn here, and as you progress in the story, you'll hit various quests that require quickly being completed or else you fail them forever. The main thing to know is you are the chosen one, and your end goal is to kill the dragon that has selected you to be its foe. How do you go about that can lead to multiple endings, and as any fan of the first game knows, there was only one true ending in that title. The game begins with you creating your main character. While you can change up their makeup and hairstyle later, this is a set-in-stone choice as far as body shape and face is concerned. It's a deep creation system that allows you to make some beautiful and a lot of hilariously ugly combinations of humans or beastren if your inner furry wants to come out. After the game's introductory tutorial area, you are guided to a Riftstone. These allow you to summon one main and two temporary pawns. Those are your party in Dragon's Dogma 2, a game that has no online multiplayer. Instead, you'll create one main pawn who will accompany you throughout the entire game, and you'll hire two initial pawns who are either generated by Capcom or other players' created main pawns. It's a really good system. It encourages experimentation and constant change, as outside of your main pawn, the other ones cannot level. And the game has 10 total vocations, aka classes, for you to choose from, and the pawns can be 6 of these. Finding your favorite combo of class types is key to the game's combat, though I will say a mage is pretty much always required as the party's healer. One of my favorite parts of the pawn system is how key their skills and knowledge can be to any quest. If you use a pawn that has completed a quest before, they can guide you directly to where you need to go, as otherwise the game's pretty happy to simply give you a text prompt of where something might be and then dare you to go and figure it out. There's a race that can only be spoken with if you have a pawn that happens to speak their language as well, and pawns are damned useful for the most part in combat. While some pathing or enemy attacks can lead to their deaths occasionally, thanks to the game's excellent physics system, they are top-tier AR partners otherwise. And to keep you from being able to summon in a far higher level pawn that can break the game's progression, you will need Rift Crystals to summon in any pawn that is higher level than your character. To earn these crystals, you can either occasionally find them in the environment, or earn them when your pawn gets used by other players and returns to you after a night's rest. Getting back to the vocations, Dragon's Dogma 2 has 10 distinct ones, which are Fighter, Archer, Thief, Magic Archer, Mystic Spear Hand, Mage, Warrior, Trickster, Warfarer, Sorcerer, and your pawns can be 6 of those, which are Archer, Fighter, Warrior, Thief, Major, and Sorcerer. Not Major, Mage. You get it. The vocation system allows you to instantly change between skill sets in any major city as you please. 4 are available at the start, 2 unlock via a quest, and the remaining 4 require you to do a quest line with an NPC that is located somewhere out in the world. The game does a good job of explaining each vocation in-game, so I won't bother here. Just know that they determine which weapons, armor, and skills you will have available to you or your pawn. The most important is the mage, as they are able to heal party members with one base and other various spells. I almost always ran with at least one mage and fighter in my party, as they really are the classic healer and tank combo. I prefer to play as either a sorcerer or a mystic spearman most of the time, and would have either a ranged or melee player to complement me depending on my choice. By the end of my 30 hours of my initial playthrough, I had only unlocked 7 of the classes, as I missed 3 of them somehow, and I played a fair amount of all the ones I did unlock. Though it can be tough to keep your gear up to snuff with each if you're swapping between them constantly, because while there is some crossover in gear, especially armor, not really weapons, of a similar style, the vocation's best gear and slot is normally just tied to one of them. To get that gear, you'll mostly need to buy it with in-game gold, though some can be found in either loot chests or by defeating certain bosses. Each of the 4 unlockable vocations that require you to find a specific NPC tend to give you a weapon that comes with them at the end of their quest chains. Dragon's Dogma 2's gear system is mostly tied to gold and NPC drops to first purchase and then upgrade your weapons and armor. You will need to have both the Arisen and your pawn as geared as possible at all times to keep the game's difficulty in check. Thankfully, that means going out and exploring its gigantic map as you slay hundreds of foes along the way. Its best feature as a game is probably its physics-based combat system. This is no Souls-like, it's much closer to Capcom's own Monster Hunter series. X is your main attack, Y is a unique one per subclass, and the right bumper also varies greatly depending on your chosen vocation. Take a mage for example. X is a weak magical bolt, Y casts a bubble of healing for all allies. The right bumper allows you to expend stamina to cast things more quickly, and the left bumper is a modifier button. Holding it lets you use the face buttons to choose abilities that you have unlocked and set for each vocation. You can press in the left stick or tap B to go into a dash mode, which quickly consumes stamina, and the right trigger lets you grab objects and enemies. The grab is one of the best parts of the game. If you're a big tanky tough guy class, you can pick up enemies and toss them easy, grab boulders and hurl them from cliff tops, and pretty much anyone can jump on a giant beast and climb all over it as you attempt to bring it down via weak points. All of it is backed up by a deep physics system that allows for emergent gameplay in a genre that rarely sees it. I did mainly play on PC, while my colleague Cengiz played on an Xbox Series X. Performance on PC was rough at first and a lot better closer to launch. On Xbox Series consoles, both the X and the S, it runs at an unlocked frame rate that seemed to mostly hover around 30. During a few intense combat sessions, Cengiz said it felt like it dropped to the low 20s, and it could be rough at times, but he was surprised at how well things on the S stood up. A few friends in the industry, like Jez Corden of Windows Central, told me they found the game to be perfectly playable on Xbox Series X. Back to the game, your D-pad is used to give commands to your pawns, and holding the left bumper modifies that into either consumables or turning on your lantern. This game is as dark as it can be at nighttime, so you'll want to make sure that lantern is full of oil. Ghosts and worse come out when it's dark, and the game's difficulty can spike considerably. The reward for this risk is certain drops you'll need for both quests and equipment upgrades. Every vocation uses the same stamina system, so each major action you do will use it up, but regular attacks, even when charged, will not. It's a constant balancing act of using your abilities and making sure you have enough stamina to keep you moving around. Because if you run out during a fight, you start up a long recovery period, but your pawns can occasionally snap you out of it. Dragon's Dogma 2 does have status effects, debuffs, and consumables to help with them as well. It's a deep, familiar set of systems that all work well together to keep things difficult, but fair. I think the way quests work might be one of the only negatives I have for the game. Most are fetch-focused, with others just being, go kill this the majority of the time. They're rarely bad, and in this game, even an escort mission can be fun with how resilient everyone is. My biggest problem is just how small they feel, outside a few of the main quest moments, because This is a really big game with a huge map, and far too often I felt like I solved an entire giant town's issues just by getting one item for one random person. For all that scope and scale of the combat, the writing and solutions for the most part just feel far too by the numbers. It's tough to get that deep into specifics without any spoilers, so I'll just say that for a game that features probably Capcom's best English VO, I wish the writing had matched it for how quest issues are resolved. Perhaps it's a technical limitation of sorts, and in the end it didn't take away too much, it just stood out to me in a sea of otherwise fantastic ideas. Graphically, I'd say Dragon's Dogma 2 is thoroughly competent, has a style and amount of interaction it's going for, and while it may not be the most technically amazing feat, it can convey a sense of awe and wonder that few games can. The character models are a massive step up from the first title, and the RE engine does a great job of mixing gorgeous vistas, lighting, and destructibility to help cover what is a surprisingly linear feeling map most of the time. A few areas have vast swaths of open land to journey through, but most of the game you're on a pretty set path feeling as you either journey for fun or questing. Console performance is, as stated, kinda barely acceptable at times. I mean, it's rarely unplayable, but unlocking the frame rate isn't going to help many out there unless they have a really capable VRR display. On PC at 4K max everything, my 5800X and 7900 XTX combo varied from 45 FPS in cities to 125 in the open world. This game's really simulation heavy, and my slightly older CPU felt the strain when a large number of NPCs were around. Dragon's Dogma 2 also supports various upscaling methods on PC, and I did use its ray tracing for my entire playthrough. And while the character writing and voice acting are some of the better on the English side for Capcom, its music is the best. It's an incredible soundtrack that elevates a pretty fun, action-focused RPG into something big. Epic orchestral music, with singers giving it their all as they chant shit I can't understand, makes fighting a griffin, troll, or chimera just that much damned cooler. And I did run into a large number of bugs during my 30+ hours, most of them related to quests, with NPCs disappearing or refusing to move until I did a full restart. One in particular never fixed itself and was the only quest left undone before I was forced to move on from it for good. I was thrown through the environment roughly 100,000 feet to my death until I hit a weird pocket dimension one time. Outside of that, the physics-based fun times felt really polished. NPC pathing can sometimes be an issue, with my pawns struggling to figure out exactly how to get around a large enemy or city, and the AI in cities can sometimes just run into walls for a bit if you bump them off course. The game features a small DLC shop as well. This is something most will find very annoying in a $70 single-player title. They are mostly just in-game use items, and oddly enough they have a limit on how many you can purchase. I never felt the need to buy any of them, and I think they're pretty harmless for the most part. Wrapping things up, I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is a fantastic video game. It improves on every facet of the first title. An excellent main quest is paired with Capcom's best English VO and some incredible emergent combat. It's fully approachable if you've never given the first one a try, and any action RPG fan owes it to themselves to learn just what the Dragon's Dogma truly is.